It's a very big week this week with a new moon eclipse. Welcome to the Mainly Moonology podcast. I'm your host, Yasmin Boland, an award-winning astrologer and the Sunday Times best-selling author of books including Moonology and creator of the Moonology Oracle cards. My intention for this podcast is to help you understand how you can create your dream life using mainly Moonology, the moon, as your guide. So my stated aim at the start of this podcast every week is that I want to help you to live your dream life, or words to that effect, using Moonology, mainly Moonology, the moon, as your guide. And this week is a massive week in terms of doing that, because we have the new moon eclipse taking place in the sign of Libra, which is already just kind of interesting just by itself. The fact that it's an eclipse is interesting. The fact that it's in Libra is interesting. The fact that it's taking placed ahead, just ahead of a Mercury-Chiron opposition is interesting. There is just so much interest in the stars this week, or in the moon, the mainly Moonology this week. So let's first talk about eclipses, what they are and what they are not. So if you lived 500 years ago, you would be taught to fear eclipses. And the example I always like to give is, obviously there are some eclipses where the moon blocks out the sun. And so imagine you are a peasant. I don't know if we're allowed to say that word in 2023. That's what they used to teach us to call them at school back in Hobart, Tasmania. You were a nice country person, tilling the fields, minding your own business, working for your overlord, the knight of the manor or whatever. And suddenly the skies grow dark, the birds stop chirping, the dogs start howling, and it's inexplicable blackness for a moment, which is obviously what you get with a total eclipse in some parts of the world. So, if that happens and you don't know what's going on, and you're, a nice country person who has no clue about eclipses or anything like that, you're going to think, oh my God, what just happened? The sky would grow dark, and then the eclipse peaks and finishes, and then the skies will come on again. And so basically what's believed to be the case is that, or I think this is actually written down, is that, after anything bad which happens after that event, people would blame it on that fateful day when the skies went dark. And, so eclipses kind of got this bad reputation as being bad, difficult times. However, I can tell you, as someone who's been working with eclipses now for, 25 years probably, they can be really intense, and they're not always easy. They're not always thrilling or happy making, but they can be the change you have to have, okay? So, with this new moon eclipse, think about what in your life are you clinging onto for grim death that you really need to release, okay? Because as far as I can ascertain, and I've studied eclipses quite a lot over the past 25 years or so, because I actually really became very conscious of my own horoscope chart around the time of an eclipse on my sun, SUN. And I've always been fascinated by them. And I can say they're basically forces for good. They just don't always feel like it at the time. All right. So this new moon, it's all about a restart, whether you're ready or not. So the way to make eclipses a little bit easier is to think, where do I need a restart in my life? Okay. So rather than sort of fighting what's going on, rather than pushing against the fact that you need a restart, maybe something has to end and something has to start, maybe you need to do things differently. Rather than pushing against that, now is the time to think, okay, I need a restart, in this part of my life. I might as well face up to it and to do something about it. Because the truth of the matter is that eclipses are easier when we release what we need to release. Otherwise, they can just be fucking, excuse my language, I don't usually swear, but they can be really, really painful, and it's like eclipses are about shoving us, sometimes unceremoniously, onto the path that we were meant to be on, that we drifted off because of our ego, because of fear. We didn't want to make changes in our life. It was too scary. It's better to stay with the devil you know than the devil you don't, and all that. But the thing is with eclipses is that if you don't just let go and start over in the case of a new moon eclipse, then it can be way more painful than it needs to be. And that's just the long and the short of it. So have a think about where in your life you are clinging on to someone or something, but deep down it's time to let go. So let's talk about ways to harness the Libra energy, because the new moon eclipse is going to be in the sign of Libra, which is the relationship sign, okay? Try to look at your most important one-to-one relationships. How well are you doing with them? It's the perfect time to reevaluate your give and take dynamic, for example. Are you giving and getting, or are you just giving, or are you just taking? That's a really important thing to do this week. I would say with your 3 most important relationships, because Libra is all about trying to find a balance between you and me, what you need, what I need. Are we all getting what we need? And the new moon eclipse in Libra is super important for striking that balance and also working out where in your chart the eclipse is taking place. You can find that in my horoscopes on my website, yasminboland.com this week. You can also get it if you are in my Mainly Moonology membership. We'll be sending you out a PDF to help you understand exactly where the new moon eclipse is triggering your horoscope chart based on your time, date, and place of birth. The other thing to do this week, is to prioritize open and honest communication, because Mercury, the planet of communication, is actually quite triggered this week. In fact, straight after the eclipse, we have a Mercury-Chiron opposition, which, honestly can go either way. It could be that someone is going to say something very healing, but it can also be someone who's going to say something very hurtful. So just be careful if you're in a tense situation with someone. And, if you're already hurt, then maybe keep away from the person who hurt you if you can. Or, it can be sometimes when Chiron is triggered, as Chiron is being triggered this week, that in fact you're being asked to stand up for yourself, and how far are you willing to go? How much are you willing to put up with? Let's put it like that. It can be like that. And the new moon eclipse is actually almost going to be conjunct, or it is within a 10-degree orb of the planet Mercury itself. So, it makes sense that this new moon eclipse in the relationship sign of Libra is actually highlighting the communications planet, because what do we need in order to have a good relationship? Well, of course, we need good communications. Meanwhile, the sun is going to do the eclipse, and then it's going to go and square Pluto, and then Mercury is also doing the same thing as well. And, so there are pretty intense energies around. But the very, 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 very good news amongst all of this is that on October 22, so that's a few days after the eclipse, which is on October the 14th, pretty much wherever you are in the world, less than 10 days later, but more than a week later, we get Venus harmonizing with Jupiter. So, it's not like it's going to be all awful and difficult, but it could be quite challenging for a little while. Use the new moon eclipse to set some intentions related to romantic partnerships, professional partnerships, platonic friendships. And I will be doing my usual Facebook ceremony. I'll be doing my dark moon ceremony, and then I'll do my new moon ceremony. You can find details for those always for free on my Facebook events pages. But we're going to be setting intentions related to romantic partnerships and professional partnerships, anything like that, and focusing on qualities like harmony and mutual respect. If you've got a relationship that's been very troubled lately, maybe there's a lack of respect that can be addressed by this new moon energy. So another thing I would like to suggest that you do this week is have a think about, or pay attention to any signs or synchronicities that are coming up for you this week. The thing is, the universe is always talking to us, and once we start to pay attention to the signs and synchronicities, it's as though the universe is actually directing us in one direction or another. And really, eclipse times are quite magical times. As I like to say, it's like a portal opens to a new life. So pay attention to the synchronicities that are coming up for you this week. All right. Look also at new ways to connect with the people you love this week, okay? Whether it's just through some kind of thoughtful gesture or trying out a new activity together or getting together in some way that you don't usually do. So the idea is that the new moon energy, the new moon eclipse energy is bringing change and excitement and the chance for things new. So look at new ways of connecting with the people you love, with your best friend, with your partner, with your kids, with your neighbors, even whoever. If you're single, then the new moon eclipse is an extremely good time to do a bit of romantic dreaming, assuming you would like to meet someone. Maybe you don't want to meet anyone. Maybe you're happy being single. But if you want to meet someone, it's a really good time to sort of think about the kind of partner that you want to attract for your next important relationship. You can visualize, you can use wish lists. You can write down the values that you want them to have. And if you're single and you're like, nah, not interested, you can still focus on how you want your most important professional partnerships to go, or you can actually think about just self-love, because Libra is the sign associated with the planet of love, Venus. Okay, so it can also be just focusing on self-love and your relationship with yourself. And, your relationship with yourself is a foundation for all your relationships. And of course, remember, where does balance start? It starts from within. And to that end, it's also a really good time to be picking up your meditation practice, because Libra is the sign of balance. Meditation is a brilliant way to bring on balance. And so a very, very good time, if you've got out of balance, to do whatever it's going to take for you to start to feel more balanced. So yes, keep going with trying to sort out all your most important relationships. Also, though, on a slightly different note, look at fostering a more peaceful environment in your home and your workspace, because Libra has a deep and abiding affection for harmony and aesthetics. So it's a really, really good time to work on the harmony in your home. I'm not saying you have to do feng shui, but, a bit of feng shui, or the Indian version, which I love as well, Vastu, or just clearing out the clutter in your home will help tap into the Libra energies. Or, take time to appreciate art, or if you haven't been looking after yourself, think about your appearance. I'm always very conflicted about this, because on the one hand, it feels very superficial to worry about appearances. On the other hand, we live in a three-dimensional world, and I think by making the best of our physicality, we're doing the right thing. So, if you feel like you haven't been looking after yourself, then now is a really good time to get back on track with that. And what I would suggest is talk to the goddess Lakshmi, Lakshmi, Lakshmi. Look her up, because Libra is ruled by Venus. Lakshmi is the goddess of beauty. It's a really good time to say, you know what, I'm going to take better care of myself, even if it's just for me. You can put rose petals on your own pillow. You don't always have to put rose petals on someone else's pillow. Do you know what I mean? So that's another really nice way to tap into this energy of the new moon eclipse in Libra. Another thing you might want to do is engage in activities that require cooperation or collaboration or teamwork, because the Libra new moon eclipse is a really good time to start a new partnership of any kind. You could also be seeking out mentors or guides for their wisdom when it comes to relationships. And also, another really, really important thing to do, keep a journal of your experiences and your thoughts this week. Because once you write it all down, it's going to come in very handy for you in terms of understanding how the eclipse affected you. All right. So, for example, make a note on the day of the eclipse how you're feeling, and maybe a few days later and a few days after that. If you do oracle cards, draw an oracle card about how well you're going to manifest your intentions, and just start to make a note, because once you start to make a note of these things, then you are able to test them, which is an amazing thing, because once we start to test things, that is when we start to see that this stuff really is real. I'm going to end by telling you about the fact that this really is an amazing, amazing time to be thinking about relationships of all kind, personal, professional, and the one that you have with yourself. The new moon eclipse is really a time where you get to meet new people, change your relationship up, spice things up, bring in some variety, and maybe just as we speak now, as I'm speaking now, have a think about who in your life you would like to have a better relationship with. Who in your life would you like to have a better relationship with? I'm just going to put on a little bit of music, and I'm going to ask you to put your hands on your heart. Put your hands over your heart chakra. And now open that up so you let all the love coming out of your heart chakra, and just visualize the people in your life, the personal people in your life you would like to send love to, that you love, that you're grateful to for, or that you would even like to have a better relationship with. And just breathe gently and easily, because honestly, this week is made for change when it comes to relationships. And FYI, in about 2 weeks after this, we are going to have the full moon eclipse, which is going to be taking place in the sign of Taurus. And Taurus is all about Venus as well. So it still could be about relationships, but it can also be about abundance. And Libra certainly has a kind of a luxurious quality to it as well. So if you've listened to all this, well, congratulations for listening to this far. If it's not really relevant to you, and you're thinking, all my relationships are perfect. I mean, I don't think anyone can probably say that, but it is also time to start thinking about intentions that you have to do with, what in life, what are the little luxuries in life that you want to start to bring into your life. So let's finish. I'm going to finish with a chant, and we're going to offer our experiences at the new moon eclipse over to the goddess Durga. So Durga is the goddess that gives us courage and strength. And that's exactly what we need when it comes to creating our own reality, having a dream, having the courage to follow our dream, having the resilience to push through setbacks that come up, and generally, having the courage to even state what it is that we want to achieve, and the strength to push through towards getting it. So I'm going to do a 3-line chant to the goddess Durga. Here we go. And as I do this, if you started to already have an inkling of whatever it is you want to manifest, especially if it's to do with a relationship, family, friends, lover, whatever, just do that visualization again of having someone in front of you and just sending them lots of lovely love from your heart center as I do this 3-line chant to the goddess Durga. Here we go. Om Durgaye Namaha. Durgaye Namaha. Om Durgaye Namaha. Have an amazing, amazing new moon eclipse week. Lots of love. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Mainly Moonology podcast. If you'd like to stay updated with the moon and moonology and astrology and all the other things we cover, be sure to subscribe to the podcast via Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You'll be notified whenever a new episode is up. Also, it would mean a lot to me and my team if you could leave us a glowing 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice, please. That actually helps more people find us too, which spreads the love and surely also brings you amazing karma for taking a moment to help us out and to help other people find the podcast. Have a great week and I hope to speak to you next week. Lots of love. It's a very big week this week with a new moon eclipse.